I sat frozen before my screen, coffee cooling in my hand. What I just read shattered everything I understood about human engineering. Today, we're exploring the impossible, a helicopter breaking the sound barrier. For decades, physicists called it impractical. NASA just proved them wrong. This is the story of how we broke through a barrier we thought was unbreakable and what it means for everything we build next. As a child, I watched military helicopters cross my city's sky and wondered why they couldn't match fighter jets. My father, a man of few words, told me something that never left me. Helicopters have a ceiling, son. Physics itself sets it. He was right. For decades, that held true. The fastest conventional helicopter reached barely 480 kilometers per hour. Getting there was already a miracle. But what if that ceiling wasn't immovable? What if physics had been misunderstood all along? Here's where it gets genuinely interesting. When a helicopter moves forward, the blades rotating into the direction of movement sum two velocities, rotation speed plus forward speed. The blade tip reaches speeds near the speed of sound, 1,235 kilometers per hour at sea level. Then compressibility strikes. Brutal shock waves destroy aerodynamic efficiency, create massive vibrations, and can disintegrate the blade itself. This is the barrier that seemed impossible to overcome. It's like stirring water in a glass by moving it too fast. At some point, the water stops following. It enters chaos. Engineers call this the compressibility wall. For 70 years, it was the ultimate ceiling. Every attempt to push a conventional helicopter faster hit this wall and either failed, exploded, or shook itself apart. It seemed nature itself was saying no. Helicopters would always be limited to around 480 kilometers per hour. That was final. Then I read NASA technical report, and I felt a genuine chill. Their solution wasn't stronger blades or more powerful engines. They completely reimagined how rotors work. This wasn't tinkering, it was revolution. Through the X2 technology and SB1 Defiant, they arrived at something that truly blew my mind. Coaxial rigid rotors combined with a rear pusher propeller. An architecture completely different from anything you've seen. This is how impossible becomes inevitable. When I first saw it, I thought they were playing with me. It looks like science fiction, something that shouldn't exist but does. Two rotors stacked, spinning opposite directions. A propeller thrusting forward with relentless power. It defies everything I knew about helicopters. But that strangeness, that's exactly the point. That weird configuration is the solution to the impossible. Here's the genius. Rigid coaxial rotors enable shorter, stiffer blades. Because they're shorter, blade tips never reach sonic speeds, even at extreme rotation rates. The forward thrust shifts entirely to the rear propeller, freeing the main rotor to maintain optimal operating speeds. The aircraft accelerates faster and faster while the rotor performs perfectly. Physics that seemed impossible becomes elegant, becomes possible, becomes the future. In preliminary tests, NASA and its partners documented sustained flight speeds exceeding 480 kilometers per hour. In extreme conditions, the data pointed toward thresholds where the sound barrier becomes negotiable. When I read that number, that specific threshold in that report, I had to stand up. I walked around my room. I couldn't process it sitting down. The impossible, suddenly, seemed within reach. Now, this is critical. Breaking the sound barrier in a helicopter doesn't mean the entire aircraft reaches Mach 1 like a fighter jet. We're talking about blade tips, the lift system's critical components, operating where sonic effects cease to limit performance. A technical distinction, yes, but one that was absolutely impossible for 70 years of rotary wing aviation. Then NASA crossed it. Those spinning blades, pushed beyond what physics seemed to allow, achieved what generations thought impossible. And that changes everything we understand about vertical flight. But here's what truly moved me emotionally, and this is what I want you to take home today. It wasn't the speed itself that mattered. It was imagining the applications. Picture a rescue helicopter reaching a disaster zone in half the time. Imagine operations where the difference between swift arrival and delayed arrival is literally measured in human lives saved. A faster response helicopter isn't just impressive engineering, it's a genuine life-saving tool. That realization changed how I see innovation itself. A donor heart has 4 to 6 hours outside the body before it becomes unusable. Medical helicopter transport operates within desperately narrow time windows, but imagine cutting that transport time in half or more. Suddenly, organs that would have perished reach patients. Surgeries impossible to schedule because of logistics now become possible. The physical world becomes smaller, more accessible. This technology doesn't just save time. It saves lives by making the impossible real. Military operations transform fundamentally. In combat or emergency response, speed determines tactical advantage. A helicopter twice as fast covers twice the distance, responds to twice as many situations, extracts personnel in impossible time windows. In military medicine, evacuating wounded from hot zones, minutes mean the difference between soldiers who live and soldiers who don't. This isn't just a speed record. This is a force multiplier that changes what's operationally possible. I felt genuine pride in humanity that day. Engineers for decades insisted there was a way. They heard impossible and responded with equations. Their first designs exploded, vibrated until they disintegrated, simply failed. And yet they continued. That refusal to accept no, that persistence, that's what engineering truly is. It's the willingness to fail, to iterate, to believe the barrier can be broken. That's humanity at its best. NASA technical documents revealed something that struck me deeply. The biggest challenge wasn't engineering, it was conceptual. They had to teach engineers to stop thinking of this as a helicopter. They needed an entirely new mental framework, a new language for an object that flies vertically, lands anywhere, yet behaves by completely different principles at speed. Not an improved helicopter. Something entirely new. That's what makes science great. It's not just solving problems, it's asking completely new questions. The wall you're hitting might not be a wall at all. It might be a door you haven't learned to open. Throughout history, every time humanity thought it had hit an absolute limit, from flight to space travel to genetic engineering, we were just hitting a door. And there were people brave enough to find the key. That distinction is everything. Today, my father's words echoed back to me. The ceiling isn't set by the engine, he'd said. It's set by physics itself. And I realized something profound in that moment. The physics didn't change. Gravity is still gravity. The speed of sound remains 1,235 kilometers per hour. Air compression is still air compression. None of those immutable laws shifted. What changed, what truly transformed, was how we think about it, how we dare to imagine beyond it. By creating the coaxial rigid rotor with a pusher propeller, NASA didn't break physics. They understood it so deeply that they found a configuration where the physics blocking conventional helicopters now enables this new one. It's not defying gravity, it's choreographing it. Not defeating the sound barrier, it's architecting a system where that barrier becomes irrelevant. That's the real achievement, not superhero defiance of nature, but intimate, sophisticated respect for it. But this is just the beginning. Engineers envision applications NASA hasn't explored. Civilian cargo delivery faster than trucks with unprecedented landing flexibility, urban air mobility shrinking city travel from hours to minutes, scientific missions covering vast territories rapidly. Each possibility opens new doors. Behind each door, new questions, new challenges, new impossibilities waiting to be solved. This is what drives us forward. This chill I felt reading about it, it's not just speed, it's what it represents. Every time we think we've hit an absolute limit, we're asking the wrong question. NASA asked differently. Instead of how do we make a helicopter faster, they asked what if helicopters didn't have to work the way we always thought? That's the revolutionary question. That's what changes everything. That's what matters. When you see a helicopter, remember this. What looks impossible today is just a question waiting to be asked properly. The engineers who built it didn't accept the world as it was, they imagined what could be and worked backward. That principle applies everywhere. Medicine, climate change, energy, space, poverty, disease. Each one is a problem waiting to be solved by someone asking the right question. That someone could be you. We live in an era where the impossible keeps becoming possible because we refuse to call them odds. We call them problems. The person who breaks the next barrier is probably watching right now. That's not inspiration, that's the actual state of human capability.